Hello, folks. Welcome to the High Tech Podcast. This is one of your two hosts, William Illingworth, joined as always by my companion, Joshua Swartz, my co-host.
You only used one word this time.
It was
That's
intentional.
good. I don't know how I feel about that word usage, though. It's fine. Somebody
You're my
clearly has not watched Firefly enough. That is...
Yeah.
Yep.
That's fair.
fine.
Oh, hold
we'll work on
Firefly. We'll come back to that in a second. Folks, if you are not watching, you may not yet know what's happening, but if you are watching, you know we have a guest with us. We're very excited for that. I'll introduce him in 1 second. Before we get into the guest, I'm just going to get the easy stuff out of the way. This is the High Tech Podcast. This is episode 223, and we're excited to have Ron Moore join us. If you're just as excited as we are, head over to social media, head over to all the platforms, like, subscribe, share, tweet, comment, ping, bell, all the good stuff at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. If you'd like to be on the podcast, want to challenge things that we say, you have a question for Ron, for instance, send us an email at inbox@hightechpod.us. And otherwise, every single one of our episodes, including this one, has an episode page on our website, which is hightechpod.us. Boom, swipe, it's all out of the way. Ron, welcome to the High Tech Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I need to work on my own personal pod intro after that.
Hey.
You clearly have done over 200 episodes. You probably didn't even have a script, did you? You were just right in there. That was great.
Oh, no,
Right there.
we do. It's in every template for every episode because we have royally screwed it up multiple episodes through those 200 episodes.
That was good. I'm all in. I'm subscribed now. You got me.
Yes, we got another one. We're up to 88. No, I'm joking. Ron, we are both members of the Candy Factory. Josh is a former member. That is how we met. We participate in an AV or audiovisual club at the Candy Factory, and so that's a really cool way that our worlds have collided. But now, I don't know much more beyond that. I do know a little bit more beyond that, but let's set that up. Set the stage for us. What is your background in? What's brought you to podcasting? What's your day job? A little bit of Ron in a nutshell.
Day job is, well, I was a teacher for about 13 and a half years. And then
Thank you for your
the last
service.
couple of years recently moved into the corporate world and
Okay.
working from home. And when you spend all that time talking to people all day, first couple months go by and it's like, I'm really here by myself, aren't I? There's no one really to talk to. Right?
Yeah.
And my wife and I were actually we spent a lot of time in Lancaster City. Didn't even know the Candy Factory existed. And we're kind of like walking by and we thought, oh, that looks like what's happening in there? And met somebody in there, talked us through it, scheduled a tour, and then that was it. And then, so I work in learning and development now.
Yeah.
And someone said, oh, there's someone else here I know that works in L&D. And
Hi.
so connected me with Will, and then Will starts showing up to. I call us the Nerd Herd because that just seems like a better name than the AV Club. We're workshopping
great.
different names, so we
great.
come together in our
Is
Nerd
that a
Herd meetings.
purposeful Chuck reference? Not just a thing that you use?
Maybe that's where I heard it first. I don't know. I'm not going
Okay.
to claim it as my own.
Chuck
Okay,
the
that's
TV
fine.
show?
Yeah, Chuck the TV show. That's their version of whatever Best Buy's
Oh,
Yeah.
Geek
squad is. They call
Yeah.
it the Nerd Herd.
Yeah, well,
I
it
don't know
makes-
if that's an actual term, but
If
it's,
you've been to an AV Club meeting, it fits. We're all into
Okay.
things that people would consider nerdy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love it. I've learned a lot going there.
Yeah.
And I, jumping ahead a little bit, but I was home thinking about starting a podcast and had no idea where to start. And so the obvious place to start was, oh, there's this guy at the Candy Factory. This is what he does. And he donated a lot of his time to me the last few months.
Yeah.
It's kind of like been my Obi-Wan to teach me. Oh, I see your Star Wars sign. That was semi on purpose. To teach me a lot of different things about podcasting because I'm coming from a completely blank slate. The only thing I know about podcasts is how to listen to them. Nothing about producing, create, nothing.
Quick question on that front. About how many podcasts do you listen to? Like, did you have one and that's your thing? Do you rotate a few? What's it like?
So I'm into sports and movies. And so that's essentially all that I've listened to is a sports pod and then a couple different movie pods. And that's about it. Kind of like stick with the ones that I enjoy. You can almost kind of get to know the hosts a little bit. You get to learn their beats and their sense of humor and you know what to expect the more and more
Yeah.
that you listen to them.
Yeah. I only ask that because when you're saying, oh, you know nothing about, like, I think listening to multiple podcasts or listening to long form podcasts, meaning staying with it over time, is a really great way to learn how to podcast. You know, like, there's things we've applied to ours since day one that I think both of us have picked up from listening to others or just our own, you know, lessons learned from episode to episode. But like, you're saying you knew nothing. Okay, yeah, you got to figure out the hardware, the software, sure, but like if there's something to the style and the storytelling of it that if you're consuming podcasts, I think you probably already have a sense for where that's going. But I've already interrupted, so you've got this decision. You're gonna move forwards with it. How do you get beyond the Jason donating time? How many episodes do we have? Like, where do we get started there?
So the tough part is the name of the podcast is Why This Film, and each episode explores one film from a boutique label called the Criterion Collection. Mm-hmm. And so the lens I'm looking at it is, I am not a film expert, so I need to I was sitting here watching these movies and I didn't understand what the heck like, why are these important? I don't get it.
Okay.
There's so many different ones. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, people, I'm supposed to, this is supposed to be culturally relevant and important, and artistically it's supposed to be this incredible piece of art. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I have no one to talk to. So I said, that's an idea. What if I talk to an expert about it that could explain it to me of why this is something that is culturally relevant or artistically relevant or an important part of the medium of film.
Yeah.
Okay.
And jokingly, I've said to my wife, you know, if I emailed these people and said, can you explain this to me? They would think I'm nuts. But if I said, can you explain it to me and let me record it? They're like all about it.
You're not
They're
wrong.
just all in for it. It's so strange. So that was kind of the start of the idea of how I started thinking about it. And I went to Jason and he said, I think you have something here.
That's awesome.
So there's one episode right now. I'm recording 4 more before the end of the year.
Awesome.
Okay.
So it's kind of I got somebody local, and then the rest of the year I have 1 international and 3 others that are just kind of all over the place.
Wow. Isn't that wild though? Cool. You jump in, you're like, all of a sudden you're neck deep and like, oh, how did I get here?
I sent emails thinking no one would answer me.
Yep.
Because it's not an established thing. It's one episode with a local professor who was a professor at your college. So I thought, this episode feels like it's pretty good. Like, I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
So I wonder if now I have something to use as an example to these people. I'm just going to start cold emailing everybody and see if I can get people on. And the hit rate has actually been pretty good. I'm shocked by that.
It's the weirdest. I have to say, like, the thing that Will and I found when we started podcasting, because we first started podcasting, it was just the two of us. We were talking, and then we started talking about, like, maybe we have some guests on, and we started with just friends in the field, because we were very much like originally a focused like ed tech L&D podcast, and that's definitely still topics we talk about, but we've broadened since then. And it was weird. It's the same thing. Like, I would have expected people not to respond. Like, when we first brought friends on, that was great, but then, like, I forget what triggered it. We got our first like person reaching out to us about wanting to be on the podcast, and we were like, okay, that's cool. And then Will just started like cold emailing people from like tech companies and stuff, and they were like super more than willing to be on the podcast, even though they knew very little about us. It was a weird thing. I would have assumed it would have been harder to get guests than it was, and it just turned out to be so much easier than we anticipated.
Do you have a thought as to why that is? Because it's something that I've been thinking about, and I'm not sure. So here's an example. So I emailed a film critic from RogerEbert.com, has written for the New York Times. So the discs, they're behind me in this bookcase, they come with essays. So I thought, maybe if I can find the person who wrote the essays, if I can find their contact info, maybe they'd be interested in discussing it with me. So the first person that I reached out to, before I even went to bed, I'm like, oh my God, she emailed me back.
Wow.
This is so neat. So then it was like floodgates of I need to chill, but I couldn't help it. I was like, man, if she's going to respond, could I get more? And I do. I have a few more. But do you have any general idea as to why that might be that people are excited? I mean, my guess would be people are excited to talk about something they're passionate about. But if you are donating time to a completely unknown podcast, the people that know about it are like my immediate family and people that I've told at the Candy Factory.
And us.
And us. It's no, I think it's interesting. I'm curious, Will, your take then in a second, but like I think part of it is like the passion of wanting to talk about something you care about, I think is a big part of it. And I think while you're devoting time, the actual like level of entry is not that terrifying. It's like, okay, I'm just coming to talk to these people about, and I also think it's just like the podcast realm is so saturated now with so many podcasts that like it really is kind of hard to tell what's a professional podcast and what isn't. Like it's like because one episode doesn't mean anything. Like, I mean, one episode, there are plenty of podcasts that start with one episode and then they wait a while and they release some. And so like I think people are really passionate about wanting to talk about what they want to talk about, and the podcast environment seems more, especially conversational podcasts, I think have found that people are just less nervous about talking.
Definitely that.
And so they're more willing to have those conversations. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree with you.
You're more the person reaching out to them.
I think that one of the things that I could provide you an argument from like the negative is I'm surprised how many times a potential guest, whether I've reached out to them or they've reached out to us, because we've had both, I'm surprised by how many times they have asked me how many followers, how many listens, how many downloads, how many engagements, I'm surprised how many times they've asked me any of those questions, which is a big fat zero. 0 times has a single guest, from a CEO of a company of 3 people to a CEO of a company of 1,000 people, right? We've had pretty good range and reach. We've had vice presidents and executive vice presidents, like kind of big ticket people at companies. Not once have we ever been asked. And Josh and I actually went to a conference as podcasters, as media professionals. And they wanted like, well, it's a whole thing. But for this moment,
let's just say Will somehow weaseled our way into like an executive suite with the head of the entire education conference.
Okay.
For an interview.
And got a free lunch.
To this day, don't know how it happened.
Weaseling,
it wasn't weaseling because you didn't push that hard. That was the crazy thing about the scenario. It was just like your point though is interesting. Like we get those questions from sponsors, which is understandable because they're putting money towards it. But I think a lot of it is like it's free marketing in some way, or it's like it's, in your case probably, Ron, it's like they care a lot about these movies. So the fact that anybody is willing to like reach out and ask them about it, they're probably very excited to be like, no, I'd love to talk about this more.
And I think that
is touches one person or more. I think that doesn't matter to a lot of these people.
I think that is the parallel between our two very different audiences and contexts. The people who you're reaching out to, the people who we're reaching out to, care very much. Most of the people I've connected with, I may have already had like a tangential connection within the company, but then I get the CEO. If you get a CEO about their company, they care. They care so much about what they're trying to do and what their product is. You know, if our episode gets them 5 new people who looks at them, it gets them 5 new people, but they get the chance to talk about their product and what they're capable of doing and the community they're building. You know, Daniel over at Topia, like he talks about his product, he's engaged with it, but he's talking the whole time about this tool, about this piece of tech, and he's just like, yeah, but how much delight it brings to people. A CEO like that who talks about their product with that language is just like somebody who's writing that essay on the back of your DVD collection, right? That's a person who's taken the time to read it themselves, who either is already involved with Criterion or reached out and asked to be involved. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many motivations that are there that why not talk to one more person about it? Hopefully this is insightful, not only for the audience, but for your sake. Like, I think the opportunity we need to take from this is don't be scared. Don't be scared to just cold call and reach out, because the worst you get to no, the worst you get no response, but the best is you get the head of Criterion on your podcast by episode 10. You know what I mean? Like, what wouldn't that be a big win?
Even the no's I've received have been very kind and very much. I think this is a worthy endeavor. They've been really encouraging.
Good.
Which is really neat to see, because there's so much negativity everywhere, and this is like my own little baby now that I'm not going to allow negativity to affect it.
I love that.
And so I've really enjoyed. I'm really looking forward to next week, because my next guest, I reached out to her. It was the first person I read an essay. And I thought, that'd be cool to talk to that person, because it's someone that has studied French cinema. And raise your hand if you know anything about French cinema. So
I was even gonna fake raise my hand on that one.
And it's
my
one
hand
of
went
those,
lower.
and it's something that's spoken about if you read about just important works of art and film. It's a really important. There's important time periods, and I don't know anything about it, and I'm curious and I want to learn, and this is the person to talk to. So I thought I'll just email her, and I'll get back to you. Let me think about it. Okay, so I gave her 2 weeks, and I reached out again. She said, "Oh, I forgot because I'm editing a book on someone who is like, yeah, she's written books about some of the movies that are in the collection."
Amazing.
And now we're scheduled for. I took a day off of work on Monday because I believe she's in France.
Yeah.
So we're gonna record Monday morning. And so those are the kind of things. It's like, I understand what you're saying because she's someone who maybe feels it's really important to shed light on some things that people might not know a lot about. She sent me a couple movies to choose from, and I'm thinking, I have no idea. Absolutely. Where do I even begin there? I have no idea.
Just spin the wheel,
And the one I picked, the only way to watch it was I had to get it off of eBay. I had to buy. It's not streaming anywhere. What? It's not on any streaming services. You can't rent it. It's nowhere. I even thought, could I put my VPN in France? Maybe it's on the Netflix. No, nothing. Could not find it.
Oh man!
And she said, "Oh, that sounds great." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to send her a message back and say, hey, change my mind. Can't find it." So I got it off of eBay, and I'm feeling like confident and ready to at least. Okay. So big roadblock for me, is when we're talking about things I've never heard of and never seen. I am coming to it through the lens of being a layman, but there's a lot of research involved, and I have to steer the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a big. I don't know how to organize this. I don't know how to like intro and end. I got the bookends, but everything in between, I don't know what to do.
Right. And for the next 30 episodes, you still won't know, and you'll second guess yourself.
30. I mean, try
60,
200 episodes and you still won't know what you're doing.
I had someone postpone, and I thought, oh, this little, not script, but this kind of guiding document I have, it's in a great spot. Now I'm preparing this. She postponed. She actually wrote a book on the making of the new Frankenstein movie that just came out on Netflix.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's a little busy. She's a little busy. So she postponed, and I thought that guide is I was really excited about it because I feel like it's so much better than the first one. Now I've prepared the third one, and I've gone back and thought I need to fix the second one that I thought was so
You've
good.
got it.
Yeah.
So it's always this. I'm learning that's just evolving all the time.
I've heard the 3 pillars of podcasting from you already. You spent way too much of your own money. You've second guessed everything you've done, and you never know when you're going to record the next episode.
No, I have 3 on the calendar, which is great because the goal was kind of because of the amount of time and energy I want to put into each one of research, and I want to read about the directors, and I want to know about the lead actors I've never heard of. Let me see their career. Oh, he's in all these other famous movies. Well, I guess I should watch those too. So if it comes up, I have a frame of reference. Like, there's a lot of time involved with going into one. So the goal was to do one a month. So the first one came out early October, and the second one was going to come out before November, but it was postponed. And I thought, well, you know what? I have another one for November. I'm still on my one a month. Like, don't be too disappointed.
Yeah.
You said you only want to do one a month. But now I'm enjoying the process so much that I want to do more. It's just the time and energy involved in that. It makes it difficult.
Amen.
But the passion is there. You know, you guys do. You guys do how many a week? You do one a week.
One a week.
Just
one.
That's still a lot, though. Like, there's a lot of. I mean, you don't run out of stuff to talk about in the tech world.
No.
You know, things
are adding more. They keep giving us robots and AI to talk about.
I was about to say, have you heard of this thing called AI?
But I imagine that's a lot of work to always be up to date and keeping up with the evolution of things that may have changed from 2 weeks ago.
It depends on what level you care. No, I'm just joking. No, I think that's the interesting thing we've always tried to balance on our podcast. Is like, okay, how much? Because there were kind of 2 big goals when we did this podcast, right? One, it was us trying to learn. Like, I was coming new into the field of learning and development and ed tech, and so that's kind of what spawned the High Tech Podcast on our end. Is like, I wasn't hearing a lot of podcasts in the space of kind of higher ed and that topic, And as we always joke, like, what did two white guys do during COVID? They start a podcast when they don't know enough about a topic. So that's like basically what we've done. Like, and for us, I think the thing that's a little bit different from what you're dealing with is like you're having to do a lot of research on the videos or the movies and stuff and the topics. That's a different side of topic because Will and I live so much day to day in this topic, like technology, education, and kind of like productivity and stuff that we talk about on the podcast. It's a little bit easier, I think, for us, and we also, I think, have a little bit of a lower standard for us on the episodes because the episodes are basically us talking about what our take is on that thing at that moment based on any of the information that we have, and it may change in 3 weeks, and we'll post a correction when we have more.
I don't know about a correction, but we've had the privilege of talking to and about tools that have gone away, and so we come back episodes later, a year later, like, hey, by the way, we've moved on from that tool because it doesn't exist anymore. We suggest this tool now because it's the next best thing in the market or whatever. But that's just rolling with the punches. And I think there's definitely a quantitative difference that makes an impact on what we're doing between these two podcasts. I love your idea of a once a month movie focus. Like, you need time to watch it. You need time to think about it. You need time to get the person who you're going to talk with. You need a lot of time around your episodes. Josh and I had an episode planned for last week. We've done these a few years in a row where we like do a little scary tech, a Halloween kind of thing. It's kind of fun, more of a game for the two of us. And again, that's not like a lot of prep in the fact that Josh gets some material for us, but then we just throw stuff at the board and have fun, right? We threw that episode out as we were recording because like, oh no, the Neo robot thing had dropped a week before, and people were subscribing and trying to buy their first in-home robots. We had to talk about it. Yeah. That's this, like, we have to be happening every week, and something in the real world is going on. So we just are able to respond to it, bring our expertise, bring guests, etc. But like yours, it's so much more storytelling in the sense of like drafting, proposing, designing, then recording and delivering. Josh and I fly by the seat of our pants.
Yeah. Well, I think the advantage on our side is, to say this one last thing, and then I think I have a couple thoughts on some topics you were talking about, Ron, there. But I think the other difference too is like we very much leveraged this podcast to talk about things we deal with in our day job. And I think that's the big difference from what you're dealing with, right? Because really for Will and I, this is essentially just us facilitating our own professional development. It's an outlet. 200 episodes of a podcast. I mean, that's basically what it's come down to. So like anytime we're talking about AI or we're talking about all those topics, like he's on teams implementing AI at work. I'm on a task force about implementing AI. So I'm constantly at my job having to know what's going on with AI. And so we kind of just use our work topics to funnel our podcast topics. Like that's kind of what's ended up happening over the last couple of years, because Will and I don't like to do a lot of research when we get home. So that's kind of, or we leverage guests. I will say, I think the thing that was stressful for us in the beginning when we first started bringing on guests is we were like, okay, the two of us could talk for hours on the podcast, but actually, like, to your point, guiding the conversation with a guest, that usually takes a little bit more work, but Will is luckily good at that, and so he tends to drive that conversation a little bit more than I do when we do guest related things. But yeah, so you're talking about some of the stuff that you, like a hurdle you kind of jumped into. I'm curious though, like, so you're talking about really loving this so far. What's the thing that you've been really liking the most out of doing podcasting?
Learning a lot of different skills.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I got some guidance on some tools to use, but not how to necessarily use the tool itself. Yeah. So, hey, I use StreamYard. Okay, cool. I'll try it, but not like in front of you, with you, or virtually. It's one of those things. It's like, okay, thank you for the recommendation. Now I need to go kind of teach myself how to use it. So, okay, got the recording. Okay, now what do I do with the recording? Am I doing video? Am I doing just audio? I decided on just audio because the video kind of brings a whole other bunch of obstacles. So I opted for just video, or I'm sorry, just audio. Well, now I have to edit the audio. Well, I don't know how to do that.
Yep.
I don't know how to add music. I don't know how to edit all the Do I want to use a free platform? Do I want to pay for one that does a lot of it for me? So there's a lot of different questions that popped up of like, yep, I have to teach myself how to do that too. And that's been so much fun because I jokingly said I'm just a blank canvas. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm making it up. Like no one ever did what I'm doing before to produce a podcast, you know. But it's not like I can search and say, hey, I have this audio file and I want to do exactly this, and you're going to find the exact thing you're looking for.
Right.
You can kind of just play and learn that way. That's been eye-opening because I do listen to the same podcast, and now I'm listening with a different ear of, I wonder how they did that. I wonder what they use. So that's been, there's been a lot of learning of just what's out there, not just with the hardware and the software, but how to actually use these things.
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun. And I imagine you have had you've had something similar. Even we're using a different hosting platform right now to record that you used before. So you're constantly kind of learning and shifting as well. But imagine knowing nothing. I said nothing again. I've never edited an audio file before in my life to then, what's an RSS feed? No idea. I have to Google that. You know what I mean? Like, what are these terms? Like, what are the? I don't know.
Yeah.
How would I know that? I know to look at Spotify or look at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Right.
And
You know
search
how to
for
go
what I'm
shop
looking
the
for.
market and get one.
I know.
That's it.
I can find something close to what I'm looking for.
Right.
That was part of what started it. I'm watching these movies and I go to these podcast platforms and I'm typing in the name of the movie. And there wasn't a lot out there for some of the more obscure titles. And if it was two people that watched it and they talked about it. And I'm like, no, but I want a little bit more. I want the person who studies it and knows it.
Yes.
And now the pressure was on of you better learn how to use these things so you don't look like an absolute fool or sound like an absolute fool whenever you hit
because when you're
publish.
doing audio, you can look like an absolute fool.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was the that was the biggest when we decided to move to video. That was a while ago, but we were originally just audio. And I remember we moved to video, and it only took 2 weeks for this or 3 weeks for this to happen. But we were recording, and then like Will and I noticed, I forget if it was both of us or one of us, we were like, oh, it was me. I have a Tuesday shirt that I apparently wear that I never noticed before. And we were like, I never had to worry about this before, but now we've got like 3 episodes where I'm wearing the same polka dotted blue button up. And listeners are gonna think I never change. You know, like this is gonna be.
Maybe that could have been your shtick. You could have been like,
I guess,
people would have been sending you different.
Will tried to do a bow tie like once, and then realized I'm not gonna be able to do this for another 100 episodes.
It's gonna make Christmas easy for you. People are just gonna be sending you bow ties.
That was a gimmick we expected. Like, oh, if I wear it, and then there's I'm always trying to do new ones. People might send them, but oh my gosh, that moment when I realized. When we noticed he had been wearing the same shirt, it still happens.
It didn't help. Back then, we were doing there were Tuesdays where we would do 2 episodes a night.
Yes, yeah.
And so we'd be like wearing the same clothes in both those episodes. So we're like, I guess we gotta change, we gotta switch it around or whatever we're doing. But yeah, no, I mean I think the skill thing is cool, and I think what's super cool about your podcast, I think at the end of the day, especially in a world, because we talk about this a lot, Will and I have talked about this a lot over the last couple of years, like in a space where podcasts went from like being a thing that people kind of use to being like this massively saturated environment to the point that like celebrities are creating their own podcasts because they're getting more audience by doing that than they are other things. It's cool to see, because I think for podcasts, a lot of people just go to it for like, I think that's the thing people miss is like, podcasts, a lot of people just kind of go to it for information, and that might be work information, it might be other things, but sometimes they just want an entertaining conversation about things they don't naturally care about, but it's interesting to hear that topic. Like I've listened to I listened to a podcast about VFX artists. I don't know anything about VFX work. I don't know why I listen to this podcast. I think it's probably because they're entertaining, but I don't understand half of what they're talking about. I think what's cool about your topic is like you looked at somewhere saying, okay, there's nothing in this space, and like I want to dive deeper into a topic that people might not have even known they wanted to get into, but like a podcast is a very cool environment to like get those people into that topipic.
Another cool part of it too is that each person, I can kind of steer the conversation based on what they are experts in. So the first guest I had, he was a philosophy professor. So in the movie had elements of time travel. So the majority of the conversation was he was going pretty deep into the philosophy of time travel in a lot of the conversation, which I thought was so fascinating. So again, I'm not an expert. So it's like, and this person next week, definitely not an expert in French cinema circa the 1950s and what was going on in France in the 50s.
What, so do you cut off at the 70s? Like, you don't go back far enough? Come on, Ron.
That specific year.
He drew the line there. He was like, meh,
that's it.
Not worth going there for me. There's other experts.
The 70s. What's going on in France now? But you can, that's another part of it too, is I have to learn so I know at least how to steer a conversation based on what this person's expertise is. So you kind of have to have a little more time to prepare. But there's a lot of learning happening, whether I kind of know it or not. Kind of like, Will, when you said you don't know nothing because you know a little. So when you start to use these tools, you kind of start to think back of, oh, I like this podcast I listen to and they do this. So you kind of start to pick up on things and think back to what you may have already picked up on. And now you're trying to figure out a way to produce it for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun. It's frustrating, but when you break through that part of, this is how I make this little piece quieter and the rest is the regular volume without it sounding strange.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how you do it, because it's been upsetting me. I almost swore. It's been upsetting me now for 20 minutes, and you kind of break through, and it's that point that is just very rewarding part of the process.
Right. Absolutely.
That's a good point. I would encourage people, even like listeners, as you're thinking about starting, because Will and I have done episodes on this plenty of times, talking about starting a podcast. I think one thing to take away from that is, right, if you're going to start a podcast, think about what are the things from current podcasts you listen to that actually engage you the most. Like, take some time to actually think through that, right? Because I think that was the thing for Will and I that was a different dynamic when we started to think through that. And it was sometimes feedback from either guests or friends of the podcast, or it was ourselves as well. They're like, okay, there's some podcasts I listen to just because I enjoy the banter of the people on the podcast. The topics are interesting, but the dynamic of those people are what interests me the most. And like, so Will and I kind of, for us, leaned into, okay, if we're going to be dual hosts, that's probably an element of our podcast that's going to be more of our space. And that's kind of a thing that we've leaned into in areas, and what we're doing. And I think that changes some things. So like, thinking about what is it from the type of podcast you're planning on doing that tends to engage people. Because even like, as you're talking right now about your episode for time travel, like, I immediately want to go listen to that, because like, I'm not an expert in time travel. Well, no, nobody is. But the
try harder.
I guess try harder. Marty McFly. But that topic just sounds so intriguing, right? And I think that's what I think is a cool premise of your podcast. It's just the essence of it sounds like it's going to get to some really intriguing topics and things about movies that people, even if they're not interested immediately in French cinema, or those types of dynamics, you're digging into like the meta behind some of these movies. And to me, like, that itself fosters some interesting conversations on things that people just like don't know off the top of their head, and they're not probably going to go read in depth unless they're interested in the topic. And I think that's why podcasts, it's a lower stakes place for people to get some of this stuff, because they can flip it on in the car, or they can turn it on while they're working, and just gain some of this information and learn things in a place that they wouldn't have normally been able to.
And we don't make a podcast that we know every single person is going to listen to every single episode. You know, like, some people don't want to deal with AI, and so they're just tuning out of those episodes. Perfectly fine. You know, somebody's going to come to your podcast and be like, French cinema in the 1950s, I prefer the 80s, you know, and they're going to skip that episode, right? But like,
that every time Will talks about this, by the way, Ron, it's very clear why we know nothing about this.
Wow.
Because Will this is like tanks on our podcast. We talk about tanks all the time, and there's moments it's very clear Will and I don't know anything about tanks. And that's the moment that it's clear Will knows nothing about this topic, when he's like, I care more about the 80s. I don't know that there's probably a lot of people.
So it kind of made me, I have a question for you guys, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Do you feel like you but do you feel like before you present something, you have to do a lot of reading and research because you're presenting something in a way, not that you don't want the perception to be, I'm the expert in this brand new thing that just happened in the tech world yesterday.
Yeah.
But do you feel like I got to make sure. Do you feel that pressure? I guess is the better way to put it. Do you feel that pressure of, man, I got to make sure I know what I'm saying?
Will's face is saying his answer is no.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I've been doing this long enough to know when Will's about to say no on a hot take. I'll let you think for a little bit longer because I have my own thoughts on this. I think it depends on the topic, right? Like Will and I are transparent when we're like, we are not an expert on this thing. This is our take from our experience and what we're looking at. And I think we're transparent about that. There are some topics where like we have intentionally said like we don't want to bring this to the episode until we're ready, right? So like we want to talk about like agentic AI or AI browsers on our podcast, and both him and I we haven't used them as much. We've done a ton of other stuff in AI, but we have not used AI browsers as much. So that topic has sat for a little while until one of us can dig into it a bit more. But we'll still be transparent of like this is just from our testing. We're not an expert in the topic. So I don't feel a heavy pressure in that space, mainly because we're pretty transparent on the podcast about our vibe is a hobby cast. Our vibe is we're not experts in all of this stuff. We're the average person, just for the most part, trying to understand this stuff. When it's stuff that we are more experts in, we'll be much clearer about that. And we'll do our research. Like there's been stuff we've talked about where like, for instance, we had like an article on the podcast at one point, we were talking about a lawsuit with Claude and AI, Anthropic. And we did research on that first. I mean, we read the article and then we both dug into stuff around it because we were going to be talking about something sensitive and we wanted to make sure we knew the whole story before we started talking on the podcast about it. But there's definitely stuff that we just like talk about and we're like, guys, we're not experts in this at all. Here's our hot take. Those are often titled hot take, high tech hot takes. And those are usually like, as Will has put it, we pull the ties off that we never wear. And we just give our opinions on things, and we're clear that that's what we're doing in the podcast beforehand.
And so we haven't been canceled yet.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Will, is your answer still no? You just don't care about that at all?
No. It's a depends on the day kind of answer thing. And what I was weighing, what you were perceiving was me weighing how honest to be about which specific episodes. I'm not going to be honest about specific episodes. I will speak generally to say when we take on a tool as an example, or we interview someone from a tool, most times, 70 to 80% of the time, Josh and I have considerably used the tool. Like we have actually either deployed that in a classroom, we use it in our day-to-day lives, etc. Right? So we have hands-on knowledge of the tool. There have been a few tools we've put up there because they have a good reputation, or we've heard about them, or we're interested. Sometimes that's a part of our bit is we will put the tool on screen and we'll explore it together. That I think is still genuine or authentic. And so there's in all of those contexts, there's no pressure. We have had a handful of episodes where the guest was maybe a strategic decision and we knew nothing about them or about the content or we like, you know what I mean? We were just in the dark. And those are the ones where I personally felt the pressure to still bring a sense of authenticity to the episode, right? I'm being very transparent. Like when I knew nothing about it, I knew nothing about the person, I knew nothing about the audience. I was like, why are we doing this? And yet the person themselves or the company they represented was its own opportunity for us to potentially share social media and to share audiences. And we've never necessarily, like, you know, we're the high tech podcast. We don't just go talk about marijuana technology, even though people have always joked with us about that. You know, high tech would be a great pun. We stay in education. So even these folks who are the least like us, or we have the least amount of experience with, have still been typically folks in education. So it's not been that bad. But I think that's one of those things, like, to parallel to your example, you know, you're talking about criterion, and I think that's going to keep you niche. It's going to keep you focused with your podcast. What happens if one day you really wanted to do this TV show? What if, Ron, you chose, well, this TV show it has all the makings of Criterion, and it has, you know, the aesthetic, it has the sense of it, and I've got this person who's really excited to talk to me about it. Do you compromise the podcast and your philosophy behind starting it by having that conversation? And that's a pressure you'll feel when you're like, but it's going to be good content. And it might be I'm just extrapolating, right? But like, let's say this TV show was spun off from a Criterion episode. You could justify it. You'll make the room to do it, and nobody's going to judge you for it. And yet, we'll still. Those are the moments for me in the creation of this entire podcast where I felt the most pressure, because I felt like there was a chance we could be perceived as inauthentic or disingenuous, and that's not Josh and my heart about things. Again, it's just the chance to meet people, engage, and do whatever. And for my heart, my approach to this, it made me feel the pressure of like trying to make it something authentic and genuine, even if it was a bit contrived. Folks, if you've listened to 223 episodes of our podcast and you know which episodes I'm talking about, good
I have to go
for you. But I don't think people are going to find them. It's just
those episodes usually don't do that great, and so I think they've died off over the years more and more.
Thanks. That's
Because,
gonna
like,
people are gonna be like, oh, this one's been listened to 5 times. That's the one Will's talking about.
Like to be honest, like the episodes that end up taking off more for us are the ones that are like authentically either in a space that we know more about the topic, or we were obviously very passionate about our opinions about the topic. Whether we were right in the moment or not will be debated, I guess, till the death of High Tech Podcast. But the ones where we've pulled in companies and stuff that we didn't feel that strongly about, over time we stopped doing that more and more because it wasn't hitting. Because you could also tell we only cared so much about the topic. And then we just started being like, this is a waste of our energy. It's not what so we started leaning more into companies that we care a lot about and what we're doing.
I'll do a very brief PSA just to say that no hard feelings. We've never tried to do anything that would.
Will's trying to do damage control now.
I know, I shouldn't have asked.
Will's like, so all of that to say, if you'd still like to sponsor the High Tech Podcast, you can hit us up at inbox@hightechpod.us, and we will take your money. That would be great. It's just
all $42 we've ever made making this podcast, and thank you to 3 people that donated it. I do, but why I took time to weigh that answer and then gave you such a long form answer is that when we're packaging this episode, we want to put this out there as like Ron Moore starting a podcast. This is how someone could start a podcast. These are the things you're wrestling with. We did it so long ago, like we forget what it's like. You said I didn't even know what an RSS feed was, and I was like, I've been using RSS feeds since I was 13. But you know what I mean? Like, this is an important part to this that I'm not scared to bring this up, because podcasts go through so much. Josh and I have always done this as a hobby cast with the hope maybe we make money someday. We've been doing it for 4.5 years. We've only ever spent money, right? We've
also not intently invested energy into doing more than that.
That's fair. But we want to make sure that's again with this episode, I want it to be genuine. Like, that's what it takes to do this. And wherever you go with yours, like, I'm excited for you. You know, you're 1 episode in, you've got these 3 or 4 folks lined up to keep going, keep at it, keep the energy going. Cause it's hard. Once you've done it for a bit, you're like, oh, do I really want to do it tonight? If you've got the guest on, you've got that accountability that helps you stay on it, which is great.
Yeah, and I think the way I've kind of started to think about it, and I have a lot of time to think about it because there's a lot of time between. Well, first of all, I can't tell you how much I don't know. There's just so much I have absolutely no clue. Absolutely none. But if you have that mindset of I don't know, you're going to learn a heck of a lot more as you go through the process of securing guests and editing and recording and all those different things. But the way I've been thinking about it is the star of the episode is really not even the film, it's the guest. It's how you format to get that guest to shine and bring that passion out of them, because that makes for a more compelling conversation. They're already passionate about it, just don't show up knowing absolutely zero.
Yeah. And
you're probably going to be okay. But I'm probably over preparing because of how much I don't know. I don't know enough about the person. I look for them on other podcasts and I listen to them there and think, oh boy, this is a really smart person.
Oops, what did I get myself into?
Yeah. But I appreciate the challenge.
Yeah.
And I think the whole reason they want to come on is like we spoke about earlier, is because they're already passionate about something, and it's just guiding it in a way that they are the star of that episode and letting that passion just shine through, which shouldn't be all that difficult. because they're already halfway
Right.
there. First of all,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
with you, and second of all, they're with you because they are dying to talk about whatever the film is,
Yeah.
even though it's something I've never heard of and had to buy off of eBay. But it's something that was,
which is amazing.
yeah, she sent it to me. So one of my very first questions is, why was this on your list that you sent to me? Like, why is this so important to you that this is one that you sent as an option?
Yeah.
You know, because that's going to then, whatever she says there might guide the rest of the conversation.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
100%.
You know,
Oh,
she could
and
say,
we've
well,
had-
I don't like it that much, but it's something that no one talks about often. Oh, shoot. Okay. Scrap all the cool things I had to say about it.
We'll just go left here.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't mind me while I shift these notes over.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah. I think if you just kind of go into it with like, I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm just going to do the best that I can now. And then hopefully it's still alive a year from now. And I listen to episode 1 and 2 and think, oh God, I can only get through a couple seconds of that. Man, that's bad. Compared to how it grows, because you learn and learn and learn for every single
Right.
one that you do.
Right.
Do you ever go back and listen to early episodes and think, oh God,
Of the
were
High
we
Tech
doing here?
Podcast.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
he just, yeah.
It's rough.
so another authentic
We had-
answer.
We had so many different things back then, different equipment, different.
We switched
yeah.
to video with episode 84. So we did 83
Oh,
audio
wow.
only episodes. And I would say that there's probably 2 of those I've ever gone back to. The video episodes, especially in the last, I'd say 60, I've spent a lot more time on because I do a lot of like social work with the like social media. Like, so yes, but what I have definitely done is I've found a podcast that I liked, like another person's podcast at, let's say, episode 100, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, and start listening with them, and I'm like, well, now they're doing bits, they're doing callbacks, they're doing whatever. I'm like, now I want to know. And you go back and you listen to episode 1, you're like, oh, this is gonna be a slog, but for me, someone like me, I'm like, I'm committed because I want to know this joke in episode 101. Where is this joke coming from? And it's in episode 44. Yeah. I won't know that till I get there, but I've done that with 2 or 3 different podcasts, and it's a lot, but I typically find that it's worth the commitment. And one of the things I'd give you an encouragement right now is when you do that, you're 10, 12 episodes in and you listen back, that's going to be style stuff. That's going to be maybe how you edited it. It might be you don't like, I heard you have a little bit of a guitar riff at the opening. Oh, I really want to move past that or whatever, right? But the content, like you said, that golden goose, not to put it in a weird term, but like, is that guest, and they're there. Whether you botched the editing or not, or you know what I mean? Like whatever we're going to feel about our own work, I think that core is going to live through that regardless of how the podcast develops, because that's the benefit of this. I love where ours is today, and I love where it's always been, but there's definitely things I'd change if we were able to go back. One thing I'll definitely capitalize on here, based on this last conversation, is we tonight planned 5 questions, right? We wrote up 5 questions to go through. We answered 3 of them without ever asking them easily.
Yeah.
Right? Like I asked you to start introducing yourself, and then we got into what drove you to start a podcast. Josh didn't even get to ask the question. Totally fine, right? You brought up your biggest roadblock on your own. Totally, like, you know what I mean? It was organic. We got through the content and added so much more to it just by vibing. And like you said, if the guest comes on and says, well, actually, I hate this movie, I think it's important for these things, you're like, oh, okay. So...
Okay. The whole idea is to ask, why is this film included?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
And I don't like a lot of them.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't understand. It's either I don't understand them or it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But when you go to a museum, do you love every piece of art?
Right.
Some speak to you differently. And so that's really what it is okay,
Good.
You like this? Help me get it. Just help me understand it, because I am not the expert. So help me and anyone else
that's your podcast
that's listening,
right
why?
there.
Why? And so I kind of like my intro and then my bookend at the end is I kind of just let them answer the question, why is this film included, and let them just summarize. And then that's how we close
That's super
it.
cool.
So
That's awesome.
it's been interesting. The first one, it's like, man, I could just listen to this guy was a professor. I could just listen to him talk.
That's perfect.
You know, this next person was a film studies professor at King's College. I'm sure she will have plenty to say and be very
awesome.
well spoken and be great.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah, so I'm really excited.
This has been so awesome. Good luck. Congratulations on episode 1. We always say the first barrier is just hitting record. So you've done it. You've really accomplished being a podcaster. Good luck. Keep it up. We hope that this is accountability because we want folks, we're going to put it in our episode notes for people to get to your links and stuff. You're hosting through Buzzsprout, which means it's available on Apple and all those. It's called Why This Film. I see you've got a Twitter and Insta, some Facebook and all that. Folks, all that links and everything will be in the episode page, but this is Ron Moore from Why This Film, and he's starting out on his journey, so make sure you go over there and listen if you're interested in the Criterion content and all the guests that he's going to be bringing in. We really appreciate your time, Ron, and we've got to wrap up for this evening's sake, but as always, folks, just go over and hit the social stuff, and we'll go from there. Josh?
Yep. I wasn't sure how we were going to end that transition. See, 200 episodes, we're not entirely sure where we're going to go. Yeah, reminding folks, find us on socials at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. We won't tell you which one, just look it up. Inbox at hightechpod.us. You can also let us know if you have thoughts, or if you're like, you know what, Ron's right. You guys are not ever experts on things. Be better. You can let us know there. Or check out our website, hightechpod.us, where we will also link to Ron's podcast and everything he's got going on. You're definitely going to want to check that out. All right, folks, that's a wrap on another week. Empowering minds.
Embracing tech.
Cheers.
Cheers.